whatever. Here we go. In a minute. It's the Jew coffee. It's so delicious. Is that anti-Semitic to say that the Starbucks coffee is delicious? Who knows, ese? Oh, yeah. I think here we go. Yeah. Let's see. Let's mute myself. Or maybe not. I don't think I have to. Yeah, I do. Okay.
There she was, just walking down the street singing.
Revolution.Radio.
You don't see it, do you? How close we are to absolute chaos? The sick ones are sitting on their fat asses eating.
She was living in a single room with 3 other individuals. One of them was a male, and the other 2, well, the other 2 were females. God only knows what they were up to in there. And furthermore, Susan, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised to learn that all 4 of them habitually smoke marijuana cigarettes. Smoke marijuana cigarettes.
And welcome to Mountain High Time. I'm your host, DJ Ransom, the Freedomist. Hopefully you can hear me clearly as I have a new setup. So we're just going to check that out right now and make sure that we're on loud and clear. And sorry about the background. There's big trucks rolling by all the time. I can't filter that out. Let's see here. See if I hear my special. We're on. That's the confirmation. And you know what? I was thinking about maybe listening to a song first. One of these neat DJ Ransom songs that get mixed up sometimes. Here's one. Just don't worry about it. There it was. It was just a little delayed.
Singing don't worry, 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 singing don't worry about a thing, about a thing, about a thing, about a thing.
Don't worry about those things. Now, let's go down the news headlines to talk about some of those things we don't need to worry about. And here's one that one of the listeners sent me, and I have not read it, but I'm just judging by the way it looks. It probably is parallel to what I've been saying. And the name of this article, written by, I'm not going to ruin her name. Let's see if we could try it. I'm going to ruin it. Starvarula Pabst. Anyway, now that I've butchered her name, let's check out her article that she wrote and see if it parallels with what I've been telling my audience. Hold on, I got to get these headphones off. The echo kills me. So here we go. Weaponizing Reality, the Dawn of Neuro Warfare, by that lady who I butchered her name previously. Anyway, Pabst explores the race to apply emerging nano and neurotechnologies such as brain-computer interfaces, BCIs, in times of both war and peace, expanding conflicts into a new domain, the brain, while perhaps forever changing humans' relationship with machines. Now, already got my attention. This seems like absolutely something that runs parallel to what I've been talking about for some time, which is that we're about to hit a singularity where biological entities and technologies interface or merge into one thing. And maybe this is an inevitable thing. I've been thinking about this a lot. That, AI is basically zeros and ones in some kind of pattern, and obviously it's much more complicated than that, but the fact that it's just a pattern of ons and offs, of zeros and ones, of mights and nots and maybes, and we're in the realm of quantum computing when things are both 1 and 0 at the same time, so they're no longer on or off but both at the same time. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. But remember, everything in the universe is not really there. It's just more likely to be there than not to be there. Anyway, the singularity that I'm talking about, not one of, creation of the cosmos, but that singularity where robotics or technology merge with very living creatures that are around us and ourselves included. And, this article's kind of going down that path. So think of hydrogels, if you might have heard that on previous programs and know what I'm talking about. I think that is already happening, that singularity of merging technological revelations and techniques to control the masses with the biology itself, which is us. So let's go back to this article and see how much more parallel it gets. Billionaire Elon Musk's brain-computer interface BCI company Neuralink made headlines earlier this year for inserting its first brain implant into a human being. Musk, I always have a trouble with that guy's name. I mean, who wants to smell musk? I wonder if they told him that when he was a kid. Dude, you smell like musk. Get out of here, Muskie. I'm just kidding. I digress. Musk says such implants, which are described as fully implantable, cosmetically invisible, and designed to let you control a computer or mobile device anywhere you go, and that falls into line with the Internet of Things and the digital ID that you will need to, access that Internet of Things, which spells out idiot, which I've told my viewers before. That's the acronym for the future of mankind that are plugged into the information of things, which includes all of the devices, whether it's wearable, inserted, or merged with your very biological systems in your body. Anyway, it's fully implantable, cosmetically invisible, and designed to control your computer or mobile device anywhere you go, and it's slated to eventually offer full bandwidth of data streaming right to your brain, man. In other words, if, like I propose, that scientists have already created machines and technologies that can literally read the brain as far as images, words, which, you know, if you do a small bit of investigating or research, you would find out that they have machines that do all of these things. Now, you know, everything from watching and identifying each and every human being based on their gait, based on their bone structure, based on facial recognition. All kinds of things are going into these algorithms to track and trace every last single, not only human, but animal in the human domain, which is the earth. So this is not very far-fetched at all. Actually, so far, she's just getting into it, but I think maybe people are witnessing 1999 in their minds when they look around at the reality out there. But in reality, it's, closer to the year 2025. I don't know. Let's see. How far in the future should we put it? I'm going to say like 2100. 2100 at least. I was going to say like, 2500, but maybe that's just way too far in the future for the realities that exist today. I mean, if you have computers and technology, devices and other things that can literally read the words in your mind or generate an image based on the image that you're thinking in your head, and then we go into the hydrogel platform of embedding down almost to the cellular level, tiny nano machines that can copy your neurons and copy what information's there, for the purposes of espionage and other things. Well, if they can take it out, they can put it in. So keep that in mind. And back to the article, brain-computer interfaces, BCIs, are quite the human achievement. As described by the University of Calgary, a brain-computer interface is a system that determines functional intent, the desire to change, move, control, or interact with something in your environment directly from your brain activity. In other words, BCIs allow you to control the application or device using only your mind. And I would propose that device can also control your mind to decide what things you might want to do, and what you might want to desire, what kind of changes, moves, or controls or interaction that you want might be given to you directly from this link. And I added that last little part. Back to the article, developers and advocates of BCIs and the adjacent technologies emphasize that they can help people regain abilities lost due to aging, ailments, accidents, or injuries, thus improving quality of life. A brain implant created by Swiss-based it's not pronounced that way. École Polytechnique? I don't know how to say it. Anyway, it's some long, in another language, pronounced thing. So I'm not going to butcher that one too much more than I did. Anyway, EPFL, a Swiss-based company, for example, has allowed a paralyzed man to walk again just by thinking. Others go further. Neuralink's goal to help people surpass able-bodied human performance, in other words, transhumanism, to the point of wearing exoskeletons or devices embedded or grown inside of your body that help you perform better than the average quickly going extinct Homo sapien. Ethical concerns arise at such advancements, and the tech is already being used for questionable purposes to better plan logistics to boost productivity. For example, some of the Chinese employers have started using emotional surveillance technology to monitor workers' brain waves, which combined with artificial intelligence algorithms can spot incidents of workplace rage, anxiety, sadness, The example showcase on how personal the technology can become as it is normalized in our daily lives. The ethical ramification of BCIs and other emerging neural technologies don't stop at the consumer market or the workplace. Governments and militaries are already discussing and experimenting on the roles they could play in wartime. Indeed, many are describing the human body and brain as war's next domain, with the 2020 NATO-backed paper on cognitive warfare describing the phenomenon's objective as making everyone a weapon. The brain will be the battlefield of the 21st century. On this new battlefield, an era of neuroweapons, which can broadly be defined as technologies and systems that could either enhance or damage a warfighter or target's cognitive and physical abilities, or otherwise attack people or critical societal infrastructure, has already begun. In this exploration of the race to apply the latest neurotechnologies to war and beyond, I investigated how the neuroweapons of tomorrow, including BCIs that may allow the brain-to-brain or brain-to-machine communications, have the capacity to expand conflicts into a new domain, which is your brain, my brain, and everyone else's brain, while also bringing new dimensions to both hard and soft power struggles in the future. In response to the ongoing neurotechnology developments, some align, had to get that out of there. More room out than in, I always say. Well, back to the article. Excuse the burp. Will protect people's minds from possible privacy infringements and a myriad of ethical issues that new neurotechnologies may pose in the years to come. However, neuro rights advocates, oh wow, I can't even believe I live to the future where that's a thing. I'm a neuro rights advocate. I advocate for the neuro rights of individuals everywhere in the neurospace. I'm sorry, that wasn't in there. Back to the article. Close proximity to the very organizations advancing these neurotechnologies deserves scrutiny and potentially suggests that the neuro rights movement is poised instead to normalize advancing neurotechnologies' presence into daily life, perhaps forever changing humans' relationships with machines. I think that's already happened. But anyway, let's go on. The military intelligence complex, decades-long pursuit of neural warfare. Indeed, neuroscience's very origins lie in war, as Dr. Wallace Mendelson, is that a Mendelson effect? I'm just kidding. It was always the Bernstein Bears. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, Mr. Wallace in Psychology Today, just as American neurology was born in the Civil War, the roots of neuroscience are embedded in World War II, also probably on both sides of the conflict, seeing how the other side was being funded by, like the Warburgs in the UK and the US. Oh, but I digress. We'll get on to that paperclip topic on some other exponential trip out here. He explains that while the bond between war and neuroscience has contributed to meaningful advances for the human condition, like the improved understanding of ailments like post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, it has left some worry that neuroscience possible military applications may just mess with you. And think about that for just a minute. I mean, they've had decades studying flicker rates that mess with your mind, colors, spectrums, sounds, and that's exactly how they get you to voluntarily be occupied in passive entertainment that we call Hollywood. And in that way, they can plant ideas. And this is just a simple beginning form of this neuro warfare was Hollywood, which, by the way, as the late, great Jordan Maxwell used to say, the Hollywood was a specific kind of wood that they would make the little wand out of. So, when composers in music and those old spellcasters used the Hollywood to put you in a trance and lull you to sleep or entertain you. Maybe both at the same time, but I digress on that. So Hollywood would put out these movies with embedded things in it, like certain color spectrums, the plot, the narrative, to get you connected to these fake people in fake situations in order to manipulate your physiological emotional system. And they do that by bringing out fake emotions for these fake people in these fake scenarios. And in that way, they can implant ideas. Say maybe they want to push certain agenda to your children, or maybe a certain agenda to you. They can put it to you softly over time, incrementally, until, everything on TV is about devils and weird relationships amongst people. But I digress there. So obviously, they've had a long time at practicing, and the kind of technology that's out now puts all that, to shame as far as how simple it is compared to the complex technological assault on multi-leveled aspects of your day-to-day life, like television, radio, news, internet, and just your social interactions with other people that are also being manipulated by that same system. And they get you all day spending this, emotion that you have a certain amount of based on chemicals in your body that gets produced every day. And, think about that. If you're in a constant state of unhealthiness, malnutrition, or depression, and then on top of that, you're paying attention to these fake scenarios, fake news, fake people, fake situations, fake deaths, and you are emotionally drained at the end of that cycle. So, whenever you come across real people in real life, you have no emotion left for them, no humanity left for them. It's been drained from you through this fake system all day. Anyway, I digress. Let's get back to it. Controversial yet well-known government attempts to learn more about the brain include Project Bluebird Artichoke, a 1950s era project that worked to determine whether people could be involuntarily made to carry out assassinations through hypnosis, as well as the especially infamous MK Ultra, where human mind control experiments were carried out in a variety of institutions in the 1950s and 60s. These projects' respective conclusions, however, did not signal an end to the U.S. government's interest in invasive mind studies and technologies. Rather, the government's internationally have become interested in the brain sciences ever since, investing in heavily into the neuroscience and neurotech research fields. Let's see here. Initiatives and research explored in this article, like the Brain Initiative and the United States Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA, Next Generation Surgical Neurotechnology, or N3, whatever that means, are often portrayed by altruistic strides towards improving brain health, helping people recover lost physical or mental abilities, and otherwise improving the quality of life. Unfortunately, a deeper look reveals a prioritization of military might. And I'm going to take that as a cue to go ahead and take some of my stutter medication, so I might more easily communicate with those of you out there in radio land. It's a pause for the cause. Don't worry about it. We're here in Mountain High Time, where the time and the place are the same, and that's 420. I hope it's partly cloudy for you out there. And this is also a perfect opportunity to thank Revolution.Radio for allowing this kind of programming and broadcasting to go on. Pro free speech, completely listener supported, and you can help keep this radio station and all of the programs on it of various different opinions and platforms that they put out there. If you like this kind of entertainment and or news, then think about donating a one-time donation or maybe a monthly donation. Anyway, you can go to Revolution.Radio. Right at the top of the page, I believe you can find a Patreon link to help out. And back to the show, Bob. Enhance. The military is intensely interested in emerging neurotechnologies. The Pentagon's research, DARPA, indirectly funds about half of invasive neural interface technology companies in the U.S. In other words, anything new that's coming out, they have their hands in it. They always have their hands in it, just like they had their hands in Google and YouTube and, the whole pyramid of DARPA companies made to censor and control your ideas. But anyway, back to here. So anyway, DARPA directly or indirectly funds about half of invasive neural interface technology companies in the U.S. In fact, as Nico McCarthy and Milan something Saviskova, sorry about that, highlight in their 2023 write-up of DARPA's neurotechnology effects, that DARPA has initiated at least 40 neurotechnology-related programs over the past 24 years. From the interface, describes the current state of affairs as DARPA's funding effectively driving the BCI research agenda. Well, of course they are. They want to control the masses. And, I don't have to go further down this to understand why the listener sent it to me. It goes directly parallel to what I've been telling people for a long time. You live in the past, the future is now. You just can't see it because there is a dissimulation blocking your view of the real world around you. Not like the Matrix where you live in a simulation, and many would argue that you do live in a simulation, but it's more like a dissimulation. And, with that being said, they want to cover up the fact that they are, in my opinion, slowly decreasing the population of the Homo sapiens sapien to replace it with a new model. And weaponizing the reality, the dawn of neuro warfare, is one of those first steps in to being able to do that. I mean, we know they have baby factories. All you have to do is have a mass casualty event around the world, and a group of people agree that they need to grow a new workforce that they would have in 15 to 20 years. And those new children, by the way, if you've been paying attention, you don't have to have a mother and a father anymore. They can just combine the proper genetics together and make what they call a human-like embryo entity, right? So it's a human of some kind, but it is not Homo sapien. And the same goes for, there are children now born out there made of 3 different DNAs. There are gene-edited people that have been created and are now out there in the gene pool. So every time they mix, they create a new hybrid species or even a new species of human being. And we all know that there were 4 or 5 different human species walking the earth about 40 to 50,000 years ago, but they are no longer here. They were replaced with us, the Cro-Magnon Homo sapien modern man, and all of the admixture mixes of the other species that are left over, having them all go extinct except for this admixture species that remains. So what makes you think that that couldn't happen again? And I'll say, isn't it already actually happening? I've been telling people for a long time not to listen to the propaganda about overpopulation. Now, it is true that there is a overpopulation problem as far as density, as far as too many people living in cities that, create bad things for environment. Obviously, that many people living in one spot requires a massive amount of logistics and resources to ship the goods necessary for that population to stay there, which is not efficient, obviously. You should be eating food that's grown near you, and it shouldn't take much fuel or anything to get it to its final destination, your dinner table. But that's not the way it works. And I've been telling people not to listen to this overpopulation problem because we have a density problem, not an overpopulation problem. But not only that with the trends of the last 50 years, that we knew that there was going to be a population bust. In other words, we hit 8 billion and now we've hit the plateau. Now we're on the downslope of population recession, a population recession. In other words, less people being born and more people dying. So the plateau is now, and now we have the great drop-off or the great death. And I'm going to go ahead and call it, the great die-off of the great death cult that is Earth right now. And let's get into that. World's population to fall for the first time since the Black Death. The world's population is expected to fall for the first time since the Black Death because of plummeting birth rates. A Lancet study has found the decline in the number of children women are having or started to slow the growth of the global population, which stands just over 8 billion, and could mean it starts to fall within decades, which this has been well known for decades already. It would be the first time that the number of people on the planet has decreased since the Black Death bubonic plague pandemic killed as many as 50 million people, that's estimated, in the 1300s, including up to a third of the population of Europe. That is the only time to date that the number of humans on the earth has fallen, with historians estimating that the global population fell around to 400 million or 350 million, which in comparison is about the population of the U.S. right now, if you count the 350 million citizens and the approximately 40 non-citizens that occupy the land. Women are required to have 2.1 children each on average to maintain population growth, known as the total fertility rate, and as of 2021 it stood at 2.23 worldwide. But experts say it's on a persistently downward trend, having fallen from 4.8 in the 1950s, and researchers predict it will decrease to 1.8 in 2050 and 1.59 by 2100. In other words, a exponential decrease in the amount of people that are being born. And I think it's going to happen a lot faster than their estimates, and I'll tell you why. Well, the same reason that they're citing, but they don't put that much emphasis on it, is that all of the first world countries around the world, fertility has been dropping, plummeting even. Global fertility rate, and it's like, I feel like Nostradamus, because what I've been saying for almost 10 years is finally just regular news headlines. So here we go, from Yahoo News. Global fertility rate keeps plummeting. Major study warns. The population of almost every country will be shrinking by the end of the century, a major study said Wednesday, warning that baby booms in developing nations and busts in rich ones will drive massive social change. But don't we already know that? The fertility rate in half of all nations is already too low to maintain their population size. An international team of hundreds of researchers reported in The Lancet. And, you know, it goes on, and you have to think about this. So all the countries that developed a nice society, they got all involved in World War II, where there was a couple of groups involved, I'm not going to name names, that were studying how to make people sick and, you know, I don't know, taking twins and seeing what would happen to one and what happened to the other if you didn't do nothing to them. You had people, you know, giving people syphilis and spraying bacteria over towns. And no, not all of that was foreign countries. Some of that was right here in the good old United States of America. Either way, those same countries are the ones that are the most, you know, protected from viruses due to the modern miracle of vaccinations, right? All of those same countries, for some reason, are also having fertility problems. Now, I'm not saying one led to the other, but you know, with all that altered food out there and dirty water with fluoride and other contaminants in it, not to mention the massive amounts of other toxic chemicals that are in everything that you use in the human domain, I wonder why the technological side of the first world nations is all of a sudden, you know, infertile. And was it planned? Was it planned? That's another question. Anyway, let's get to more on the death cult. And my idea here that I'm trying to convey is that every program out there right now is designed to reduce the population. It's not a natural, you know, plateau of it. Maybe there would have been a natural plateau because the number of old people reached a certain point and less people having children. It's true. But on top of that, you have an entire top-down dissimulation about how it's a good thing for you to die. Remember, you're bad because you fart and, well, you use a car and you eat plants and you eat animals, and all of that takes a toll on the environment according to them. But, you know, loneliness is worse for you than obesity and alcoholism. Even smoking 15 cigarettes a day isn't as bad as being lonely. And where am I going with this? Well, you know, just so happens that dying together, saying I love you, is couples euthanasia in Netherlands as they push, hey, you know what? Maybe the world sucks and you're old and, you know, your bones hurt and you got a couple of issues. Why not just do what those what were those guys in the 40s and the 30s? I forgot what their name was, but remember when they were like telling people, hey, you should gas yourselves. Here, go in here. No, that's bad to say that. But now you have countries talking people into volunteering for it now, so it is a reality now. Hey, Mr. 77-year-old Dutch doctor, thank you for helping 125 people leave this world. Now, I'm not saying that people with terminal illnesses don't have the right to, I guess, delete themselves. However, I'm saying, you know what? There's a lot of programs out there that are trying to push you over the edge with the rest of the lemmings, and it's not cool, man. And you can do this if you're young. I mean, think about Canada. They spread out this idea for people on drugs. You know, oh, you're an addict? Well, come over here. We'll help you. We'll even give you some government assistance to help you on your journey to the next realm. Oh, you have a issue? You have a terminal illness? Okay, that's fine. You know what? Let's go ahead and let the mentally ill have an opportunity to do it too. Now we're starting to talk about like those eugenicists in the 30s and 40s, aren't we? And then the next, what's the next thing? Oh, you're a capitalist? Hey, we can't have you capitalists run around. We got to end that. Maybe you should come over here and we'll give you government assistance so you can, help yourself out. No thanks. Anyway, let's move on. Don't worry, when you're old and lonely and it's just the two of you, you could have one of those iRobots up in your house managing your medication and whatnot to make sure that you do what you need to do to get the digital currency and your proper social credit score all in line so you can travel and enjoy your iRobot. Anyway, so from the sun here, and this isn't too far-fetched, and what it is funny, this is kind of what I'm talking about you think you live in 1999, but you don't. You live in the future. And this is one of those things. They show you these goofy robotics. Like they roll out, what's her name, Sophia on a table so she's non-threatening. And they show you these goofy Albert Einstein-looking robots. But the truth is that robots are coming in a new form, and they're killbots. And if you think that having one in your house snitching on you 24 hours is creepy and crazy, what if I were to tell you that you've already made that decision and you've been doing it already for a decade? There's a thing that's probably within 3 feet of you that can quadruply, if that's even a word, it can identify you and verify your location in quadruple. How about that? That might be the right way to say that. But anyway, I bet just within 3 feet of you is a bite out of the old knowledge tree, or a little personal droid that you carry around in your pocket all day that you look at hours and hours of the day, and you look at it to see what's new, what's the new news, what's the new social changes. What are my friends doing? Instead of going to see them or calling them up on the phone or whatever, you can just look. Oh, look, they ate asparagus and steak last night. I wish I lived that good of a life. Oh, look, they even took a picture of the mashed potatoes. Oh, I want some mashed potatoes. Not really. So you've really already agreed to having a little spy robot go everywhere with you, and then volunteer all of your personal information. Look, I like to eat here. Look, my friend lives over here. Look at all my family and where they live and what they do. Thanks. Why do you even need an NSA when you're volunteering all of that information already? So the idea that there's an iRobot, hanging out at your house has already been happening. But let's check out this article. They're talking about a man-sized bot that might just put their hands on you if you don't do the right thing. iRobot, chilling rise of Chinese humanoid robots with calls for one in every home and a workforce to be replaced with a droid army. Well, isn't that something I've been telling you that's going to happen? All they have to do is reduce the number of the population down to, 500 million, kind of like on those Georgia Guidestones. And then the next thing there's just a small slave class of genetic donors, rape victims, and people to work on the machines. Oh, is that a bad light of the future? Anyway, humanoid robots might soon be brought to homes of everyday people, according to a new robotics center in Beijing, China. The robots, which use AI and resemble human body and shape, are expected to propel China forward in its tech war with the U.S. No, don't worry about it, because we got our own robots trying to get in our house and tell us what to do already. Humanoid robots perform at the World Robot Conference 2023 in Beijing. It's an old idea, but what they're really going to be using the robots for is stuff like this. Fleet of high-tech spy drones that can kill targets. Yeah, that's what it's going to be like. So you imagine some man-sized robot in your house reporting to the WHO that you ain't been wearing your mask inside by yourself, or telling the, I don't know, some other alphabet agencies about the items you have stored at your home. Guess what? You probably talk about that stuff all the time, and they are listening, and they are paying attention, and they are recording all the metadata. Do you think that Edward Snowden was joking? Did everyone forget about it and go on their merry way? Yes, they did. If you imagine going to your next door neighbor's house and then rifling through his house, checking all his phone messages, then you would realize that you've already been had, because you don't get mad that the government does that all the time. They know what you ordered. They know what's in your drawers. They know what you like. They know all of your addictions. You like Coca-Cola? Do you like Marlboro Reds? What are you into? What's your vices? You probably told them when you www'd some yellow tube or red tube or whatever it's called. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, on to the death cult. Ireland. Euthanasia becomes next target for liberal agenda. Isn't that nice? You Irish people can just volunteer to tip off to the old, whatever you guys call it. I don't know. I'm Irish too, and that horrible accent there. Anyway, maybe a reason for the reduction of population and stuff like this. Our country is being poisoned. 270,000 overdose deaths catapult fentanyl as the major voter topic in the presidential race. Well, where do you think it's coming from? It's coming from your own military-industrial complex and China, and they're taking part in it together because, all they have to do is ship it over to the cartel, let the cartels bring it in, and you got a brand new Vietnam-style drug epidemic. You remember when they used to bring all that heroin over. And matter of fact, in the recent past, around 2003, all of a sudden heroin took an uptick and a bunch of people dying and doing it. But now we got fentanyl, because they're tired of waiting decades for you to die on your addictions. Let's just hurry it up. It's almost like they got some kind of agenda to get rid of everyone, or at least all the people that they, think are deplorables or useless breeders, useless breathers, Anyway, let's get into this. In a recent interview on Fox News, former President Donald J. Trump warned our country is being poisoned from within by the drugs and by all of the other crime that is taking place. Now, while I agree with Mr. Trump on this item, I also can acknowledge that Mr. Warp Speed did his own helpful addition to the drug dealing of Americans. So let's skip past that. Anyway, according to the latest provisional data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, between November 2019 and October 2023, there have been a shocking 270,000 overdose deaths from synthetic opioids, or about 80,000 overdoses per year across the nation. Isn't that nice? It's almost like they love you, and they want you to have a good life by making sure your kids get proper funding and access to all of these exciting new things. Expecting windfall from a wave of cancer patients. Pfizer, we can't read that because I'm gonna go back on YouTube and we can't talk about it. I guess I could just cut it out since I'm not live on YouTube right now. Anyway, from Natural News, expecting a windfall wave of cancer patients, Pfizer leases huge property in San Diego for research and development of cancer drugs. Isn't that nice? The oncology division of pharmaceutical giant Pfizer has leased a huge property in San Diego as part of its efforts to redefine itself as a cancer drug powerhouse. This comes amid noticeable increase in the number of people receiving cancer treatments in recent years, particularly after the global rollout of the beep, 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 beep. I can't say it, you know. That'll be easy for you guys not to ban me out there on YouTube there. I censored myself for you. Bloomberg News reported that Pfizer agreed to a 15-year lease for 230,000 square feet of a Torrey View Life Science complex in Silicon Beach. Citing a statement by developer Breakthrough Properties, the drug manufacturer will occupy 2 research and development buildings at the 10-acre campus, which means it's nearing completion, I guess. That's weird that so many people are getting cancer nowadays. That's quite the mystery. I don't know what happened that was so different that initiated that. So weird, man. You never know, man. Like, totally rad. Anyway, speaking of the death cult, you might want to pay your taxes on the way out. You know, if there's less people, where are they going to get all these global emissions taxes from? Well, everybody always says this thing. Why is there war? Well, it's oil. Why do they want the oil? Because of money. Oh, is that why they do stuff? Money? I don't think so, because they print that money. They control how much that money's worth. They don't care about money. This group of globalist people now don't care about money. And they're willing to let the financial markets collapse to get what they want out of things. Never let a emergency go to waste, as they say it. But until then, let's talk about everybody paying their fair share of global emissions tax, right? World's first ever global emissions tax takes a step closer to being reality. The International Maritime Organization, maritime law. And if you don't know about maritime law, you might want to look into that because you were born in the water. Well, most of us were. Anyway, they held its latest rounds of negotiation to discuss how to move forward on climate regulation of the shipping industry. Campaigners said growing support for the world's first ever global emissions levy meant it was now more likely to be adopted by the IMO next year. Who are these unelected douche nozzles that always decide everything for everyone? Anyway, the UN is on edge of adopting the world's first ever global emissions price, but the policy will only be successful as if countries make it to be, said whatever her name is, shipping emissions internationally outreach manager at the Ocean Conserv. Guess what's going to happen? India and China don't want to do this, so they're not going to do it. And if they do it, they're only going to do it to you, which is going to make every good you buy go up in price, namely food. Anyway, micro apartments are back. You might as well live in your coffin now before you volunteer for euthanasia, or, you know, have some kind of new turbo cancer or something like that, or, you know, get killed in one of these wars that are going on, or maybe, you know, you just don't have no kids because, well, you can't have any, so therefore your genetic line is gone. But thank God they have the your human right to end or destroy any offspring that you might accidentally come up with. As long as that's all right. You know, God forbid you continue to your DNA in its evolutionary branch here on this earth. You should end it, right? I mean, it's your right to end it. Isn't that cool? Anyway, until then, you can live in a micro apartment. They're back after nearly a century as need for affordable housing soars. It's not back like if it's a fad. They've been wanting to put people in little boxes and end single-family homes and put everybody in these little coffins, if you want to call it that. Every part of Barbara Perez's Garcia and her family's single-room apartment in Seattle has a double or even triple purpose, 180 square feet. Well, you know, if you lived in a tiny island like Japan, this would make sense. But if you don't, why would you want to be cramped together with all of these people, especially if a war breaks out? I don't know. Just ask the Ukrainians, you know what I'm saying? Just ask the Ukrainians how they liked all those high-rise apartment buildings they lived in when they started getting shelled. I'm just saying. Why would you want to live in here? I don't know. but they want you to live in here. Now, I could see somebody that has a job in the city and they're single and blah, 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 that this would be great for them, all they need or whatever. But I like room. I need room for my kids to be running around. I need room for my pets. I need room for me, for sanity. And I don't even have that much. So I can't imagine squeezing it all down to an even smaller. But you know what? Since you're not going to be buying that much groceries, you don't need that much room. And you know what? You're going to own nothing and be happy. So I guess you shouldn't mind living in the little micro home, tiny house, box, coffin. Anyway, I digress. On to Sputnik. Even the Russians realize what's going on. Global fertility crisis threatens 97% of the world's population. According to this scientist, global fertility is declining, with over half of all countries and territories experiencing rates below replacement levels by 2021, which has been gone for 2 years. By 2050, it's projected that 75% of the world's fertility rates will be insufficient to maintain population levels. But like I told you, that's fine. That's okay, because they have a plan for you, and it doesn't include you, unfortunately. Well, it includes you getting in a little box and disappearing and taking your opinions and your inalienable rights with you, because, you know, who likes to have those, right? It's much better to decide to just end your own line. That's a better right than, I don't know, protecting yourself or having ideas and free speech and freedom of religion and freedom to travel and move and associate with who you want and, you know, I don't know, pursue happiness or something like that. Nah, just be lonely, just be depressed, and don't worry, your government's got you back. You can get government-funded assistance to help you move on to the next realm. Anyway, it looks like we're rounding out the hour, but what do you guys think? Are you willing to off yourself for the greater good? Come on now, you're producing all those farts and carbon dioxide, those poor plants, you know, they don't want to have all that extra food for them to grow and make food for you. I mean, let's just end the cycle of abuse. We could just, you know, like, reduce ourselves. Isn't that the motto of the Greenies? Reduce, reuse. Oh, reduce and reuse. They just want to use you once, though. They reuse you through your lifetime, but, you know, then they reduce you. And then they recycle you. It's Tuesday. They call it Soylent Green. I'm just kidding. But, you know, if you've been watching my channel, you probably heard that a lot of the products, especially here in the United States, weirdly are turning up with human DNA in them. Like all of the hot dogs and sausages, like up to 2% of them have human DNA in it. And then let's not get started on the flavor crystals. I don't even know if you could talk about that on YouTube anymore, because it's the next generation, you know. Don't worry about it. Just go get a Pepsi. It's not a real human. They just cloned it, and then they cloned it, and then they made like a product out of it. So it's like, it's not really ingesting humans. It's not really cannibalism. It's just, you know, maybe taking part in their spirit cooking or something. I don't know. What do you guys call that? What do those transhuman dudes call that? Or dudettes? Ladies and germs of all persuasions that believe in all that cooking of the spirit juices. Isn't that scrumptious? Sounds delicious. Have you ever heard what's in those things? I'm not going to say it over there. It's pretty nasty. Let's just put it this way. It contains human DNA like the sausages. And I think it's a little more than 2%. If you know what I'm saying. Anyway, I think we're rounding off the hour. And we will come back and talk more about the death cult that is our world. Right after we have a catastrophe and drop the mic. Anyway, you are listening to Mountain High Time. I'm your host, Ransom Godwin, and the time and the place are the same. That's Mountain High Time. That's right here on Revolution.Radio, where the information never stops and the internet never sleeps. I think that's it. I never get that thing right. But anyway, thanks for having me. And don't forget to come back for the second hour of partly cloudy stoner talk here on Mountain High Time. Or maybe my clock's wrong. Oh, it is. One of them's a minute ahead, so we'll just blab on for a minute and tell me, what's your plans? I'm making children. I've already replaced myself, so I'm good. I replaced myself plus more, is what I meant to say. Talk my old lady into squeezing out a few more, maybe. We gotta help the planet, man. Don't want to listen to those weirdos in the climate cult.
Today, the demand for gold continues to flourish globally. History proves that fiat paper money is designed to go to zero through inflation, whereas gold has intrinsic value in which it maintains forever. Paper money is a debt instrument. Gold is an asset of wealth in its own right. It does not depend upon any governments, corporations, or individuals' promise to repay. ITM Trading has spent the last 27 plus years developing a team of expert researchers and analysts to make this possible. Simply put, we build strategies which are historically proven to protect your wealth and assets through any economic downturn or currency collapse. Schedule your free gold and silver strategy call 866-834-1422. That's 866-834-1422. Or go to learn.itmtrading.com/MIAC and keep watching Mountain High Time and Mini Ice Age Conversations if you know what's good for you.
Imagine, if you will, a glimpse into the possible outcome of a million mistakes. What you are about to watch is a nightmare. It is not meant to be prophetic. It need not happen. It's the fervent and urgent prayer of all men of goodwill that it never shall happen. But in this place, in this moment, it does happen. In the midst of it comes unexpectedly over the phone the announcement of the President of the United States, the warning from the very top declaring a state of emergency of suspected enemy missiles approaching. It's anyone's guess where they might land. What city will be obliterated? How many could be lost? And last but not least, will it be me? Will it be my family, friends, my square inch on the map? Minutes go by and nothing. Right as you exhale a breath of relief, an instant wave of horror treks down your spine and a sinking feeling in the pits of your stomach. Just then, the power goes out. The only light you see is the glow of your phone. Shining in your face, the icons of terror. Low battery, and even more frightening, the symbol for connection to information and loved ones gone. You try the landline in your office, desperate to contact family. Nothing at all, just a bone-chilling empty silence. Panic-stricken, you blindly forage for your car keys. Success. Something in this nightmare of a day has gone right. Now it's a desperate mad dash for your car. Your mind now in a near intellectual paralysis. Logic a struggle as you cope with a Gatling gun barrage of horrific ideas of what your family might be going through in this very moment. Miraculously, your car starts and you begin your seemingly apocalyptic drive to locate your kin. As you pass the first stop sign, the sight of civic decay is already bearing its nasty head as you speed past fights in the streets, looting and a complete halt of any semblance of an evolved civilization. To your right, a large fire. As angry, fear-filled citizens with their arms full of grocery items run from what used to be your local food market ran by a mom and pop's couple now collapses into a bonfire of dreams. Because of the commotion, your attention span has been stolen. Now before your automobile is a violent crowd. They have now surrounded your car, banging on the metal, bashing at the glass, screaming incoherently. What just a second ago was the road to salvation, now a deadly trap of circumstance and fear blocking your escape. This can't be happening, repeatedly echoing in your head as you start to mumble the phrase in a shrieking, inaudible, childlike tone to yourself. The trepidation now filling your lungs like a poison fog, suffocating and smothering in its certainty. Just then, as your heart and soul seem to be having synergistic perturbations, an alarm blares, overwhelming your senses. Immediately you recall the warning of missiles. You close your eyes and expect the end. But the alarm morphs into a sweet, familiar beckoning of your alarm clock. You open your eyes and switch off the welcoming timepiece. A warm filling of relief as you realize your family is safe in their beds, and no pending doom is written in the stars today. For a split second, you ponder the poor people of your vision, and it reinforces your confidence that you have already prepared for the any scenario. You have peace of mind your children will eat and thrive, because you invested in their future to give some stability if any break in the normality of life happens. You invested in heaven's harvest. The you in this story was a fictional you. But do you get the feeling something unthinkable is going to happen soon? I sure do. The problem is we probably won't see it coming. One morning you'll wake up and the world will be a much different place. Don't panic, prepare. Smart folks are investing in emergency food now. A wise man once said, "It's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it." Heaven's Harvest is the nation's leader in emergency food storage. It's the only investment you get 100% of your money for, even better than gold. Survival experts recommend the 3-month emergency food kit. Go to heavensharvest.com, use the code ADAPT at checkout, and save a mind-blowing 15%.
All right, thanks for listening while we took that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And now we're going to get back to your host.
And welcome back to Mountain High Time. I hope you're having a good time here on Revolution.Radio. I think it's time to listen to a song. And then we'll get back in to the news, or the death cult propaganda, that is. Anyway, here we go. And we're back. Some kind of weird echo was going on. I don't like it. Anyway, let's get back into the death cult that is the world. Here we go. Over 16,000 chemicals found in common plastic products. 3,000 more than the previous estimate. And then think about this. We're all totally infected by these plasticides, plastics, and the chemicals found in them. And it's really weird because, like that hydrogel platform idea, these could be used in combination with heavy metals to produce, I don't know, chips or things that have functions within your body with the right technology. And look at this. Millennials gave birth to Generation Alpha. Are these kids already doomed? Well, I hope not, because I'm an X, and I have some Alpha generation, and I'm trying not to mess them up. It'll be hard not to in this world, though. I mean, think about that. All the stuff going on, which we're going to get into. I was looking at Twitter, and I was watching some of the conflict going on in the Israeli-Gaza section of the world. And, I'm watching teenagers walk down the street in the neighborhood that used to be theirs. And they're just smited off the map. And the people that pulled the trigger knew that they were no threat to anyone. Or so I don't know what you want to call that. I call it murder. And, I'm not the one to jump on either side of a conflict, because I think both sides who commit atrocities are D-bags. And I don't agree with murder. And I think murderers, killers, are on all sides of these conflicts, and they're in the positions of power. And you wonder why things like this happen is, well, because the people in power want them to happen. It's a death cult. It always has been. I mean, think about Skull and Bones and other things. I mean, what do you think they were trying to represent with that skull and bones right there? It's death, because it's a death cult all around the world. And that's why, of course, when you think about things that happen and you're sitting there, thinking about, I don't know, is that a false flag? Is that really what happened? I mean, I wonder what happened or why that happened. Are you the crazy one for thinking that this death cult might be up to no good and doing nefarious things when it comes to the mass killing of large amounts of people around the world? I mean, think about it. Which guy's your favorite? I mean, was it Mao? Was it Stalin, Lenin, Hitler? I mean, Pol Pot. You can go on and on. The Bolshevik Revolution, or is are you into more modern horrors, like maybe the rollout of some stuff that happened in the last couple of years, or maybe you just don't mind the little bit of killing here and a little bit of killing there, as long as it's not your team. As long as your team's doing the killing, it's all good and it's all fine. Tribalism at its best, because the world is a death cult. Let's move on. We'll get to that one. First interrogated suspects of the terrorist attack in Moscow concert hall attack say they just came from Turkey and that they were paid to do it. And what's so funny about what's going on right now is that they're trying to blame ISIS, which, maybe it was ISIS, but who runs ISIS? Who armed ISIS? Who funded and trained ISIS? Well, that would be, the good old United States. We created ISIS. You can find, film of Obama openly talking about it. You remember when we had McCain going over there and Kerry and all of them making deals. You remember the Benghazi weapons transfer that they tried to play off like an attack on one of our embassies. Or what was it? They tried to say it was something it wasn't. It was a weapons storehouse facility that had a bunch of rockets, missiles, and other weapons that got transferred hands. And, I don't know, it sounds a lot like what happened in Afghanistan when 13 American troops got murdered because of the actions of what's going on, where we left $85 billion worth of war equipment in the hands of the Taliban, who we just were growing opium with, and supposedly they were the bad guy, even though, we kept people from burning down their opium fields and stuff like that. Protected them, as who was that, Geraldo Rivera? You remember when he went over there and he was like, oh yeah, and these are poppy fields, and you guys are guarding them? Oh yeah, we got to help the farmers with new techniques and whatnot, because it's a death cult. What are they going to do? You're getting orders to guard it. You're just going to say, you know what, I quit, I go home? You can't do that. You already signed up. You're already there. There's already people trying to kill you. Now you got to do your job, regardless of what the job is and whether it's right or wrong. You get put in those positions. So, if you are a young person and you're thinking about joining, you might want to think about why you're joining, and who will you be fighting for, and who will you be fighting against, and why. The big question, why? And you might realize it's because it's a big death cult. And here's another example of it. The U.S. government constantly tries to disarm the citizenry, the public, the people that legally exercise their Second Amendment. And you have the government of states and the federal government constantly trying to limit or remove or extinguish one's right to self-defense here in the U.S. But ironically, at the same time, you have judges, deciding that illegal immigrants can own guns. No problem. Don't worry about that. Let them have guns, but you, no, not so much. You shouldn't have any. You're a pesky citizen that pays taxes and has an opinion. Anyway, here's an article from the Reload, and they're saying the Supreme Court of the United States is unlikely to agree Second Amendment protections extend to the people unlawfully in the U.S. However, I've read the Constitution. It doesn't say anywhere on there about who, except for voting, who gets to enjoy protections under the Constitution, because you're born with those rights. It doesn't come from a government. But I digress. I don't have a problem with people that are not from this country being able to protect themselves while they're here. I do have a problem with those same governments allowing them to do that, trying to restrict that same right to the citizenry. Obviously trying to cause some kind of division here. This is part of their death cult. Let's, circulate a bunch of weapons to people that it can't be traced to, but micromanage those people that are the intended victims. And you got this guy, what's his name, from the Department of Justice, and everything that comes out of his mouth is anti-American that I can see. The Department of Justice announced to launch its National Extreme Risk Protection Order Resource Center aimed at preventing individuals from purchasing or possessing firearms. The DOJ's announcement came just hours after the Senate House passed a $1.2 trillion government spending bill on Saturday. And you notice they want to send all your money and all of our weapons over to fight Russians, but they don't want you to have it. Those poor Russians, they need those guns to protect themselves, Oh, excuse me, I said it wrong. Those poor Ukrainians, they need them guns to protect themselves from the Russians. They need them, the citizenry. They need those guns to protect themselves against those evil fascists over there. While they're telling you, you don't need to protect yourself while your country's being invaded. Don't worry about it. Go back to sleep. But really think about that. That's the whole reason that I think this whole world government and its plans keep getting pushed back, is because of the firewall of the United States citizenry against total global tyranny. Because we have the gall over here in this country to write that fundamental rights come from our Creator and not from any government, so therefore any government cannot take them away. They hate this idea. They want to govern you to death. They want to govern you from birth to death. And how dare you be in a country that believes that your rights come from your Creator and not from some group of, rejects that want to run the world. But just think about what's going on here, where you have the Department of Justice trying to curb and stop people from exercising their Second Amendment, and, out of their other mouth in a different court, saying that illegal immigrants or criminal invaders or unlawful citizens or undocumented workers or whatever you want to call people that don't care about your laws, don't care about your culture, don't care about your private property. And, well, what do you call that? They got all these words that you're not supposed to say. Change the words, change the definitions. But you can clearly see that on one hand, they want to stop people from owning guns. And on the other hand, they want to allow people to own guns. You make up your mind, which is this, what's going on there. The U.S. faces the same risk ancient Rome faced in Caesar's day. You don't say. Let's see what Time magazine has to say about it. I bet it ain't the same things you're thinking. Anyway, special prosecutors and investigations of Joe Biden and Donald Trump do not mark the first time in political tension spilled into the justice system. On January 10th, 49 BC, Julius Caesar marched across the Rubicon, to cross the Rubicon, as the saying goes, river into Italy, launching a civil war against a Roman republic. His reputed exclamation, "The die is cast," is famous. His reasons for fighting are more obscure. Though Caesar was certainly ambitious, it was not a desire for power that forced him to cross the river. It was legal danger. Over his early career, Caesar had shown little respect for law and constitutional norms, but neither had his conservative opponents. Corruption and political violence had become common, while the justice system increasingly served as a political tool. That does sound familiar. Caesar had become governor of Gaul, modern France, due to the support of elderly General Pompey. What's the guy's name? Don't we have a guy named Pompous right now? Or is it Betrayus? I always forget. Is it Betrayus or was it Pompous? I forget. Anyway, while governor, he was immune from prosecution, but Caesar's governorship was expiring. Pompey turned on him. The old general devoted his army to defense of the Republic, supporting officials who planned to charge Caesar with serious crimes. Pompey's alliance with the conservatives pushed Caesar into political corner. He only had one way out. And you can see where they're going. So they're going to try to say here, I know it's down here. We just skipped to it where they're going to try to say that Trump is going to try to cause a civil war if he gets in office. Even though, they've already been locking up people as political prisoners. Don't kid yourself. 25 years later, we're all trapped in the Matrix, according to the Wall Street Journal. And this is something that I was talking about before. And it's not a simulation. It's a dissimulation. It's fake. But like the Matrix did have a fake environment. And I brought that up many times because I use this allegory for the way it is now. The 1999 sci-fi classic predicted a world like the one we live in now, where human beings are cut off from another by technology, but it also reminds us that resistance is possible. I thought resistance was futile. Was that on Star Trek? Oh, yeah, that was a communist show, wasn't it? Oh, no, they were socialists. That's right. I'm sorry. Great show, great show, great show. Even though it was one of those early push communism on you. It's a systematic scene familiar to millions. A man named Morpheus sits across from another man named Neo, and an informs him that his entire notion of reality is a lie. If Neo wishes to know the truth of human existence, Morpheus says all he has to do is choose one of these pharmaceutical pills. You take this blue pill, and you become a donkey. The story ends, you wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to identify as. You take the red pill, and you become a conservative, and try to ignore that the deep state and the police state exist. Oh, am I not doing that right? I'm sorry. Whew. What if you took both pills? You'd probably be really effed up then, huh? I don't even like the idea that the whole thing is based on pick your political pill, pick your team, pick your tribalism, red or blue, pick a team. It's like this whole argument about should we defund the police? On the one hand, you have idiots thinking that, no police in society would work out. Obviously. But then they argue about funding when we all know, or at least people that bothered to look or research it for just a second, you'd know that police in America are the 4th largest military in the world. They have access to armor, 203s, M4s. They have every bit of funding they could ever imagine. There's agencies and task force and just funding up the, you know what? It's spilling out of their ears. But yet they're not policing the country right. Why is that? So they could get more money? So people could say defund them? And then you're like, no, don't defund the police, you moron. Then they won't protect us. Well, the whole thing is you're supposed to be protecting yourself. The government's supposed to be small. You're supposed to be armed as much as the government is. But is that the case? No. No, it's not. In fact, if the government really wanted less violence, why is the post office, the Department of Education, and all of these other agencies that have nothing to do with policing have their own weapons and ammo and guns and agents that are willing to put force on you? Why does the IRS have its own little army of agents with guns? I don't know. Do you think they're funded a little too much? Maybe. So, when someone says defund the police, I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea. And then they're like, well, it's the police, they're racist and it's institutional racism and blah, blah, blah. No, they just get too much money. And anybody that puts on a uniform and a totalitarian mindset is going to be a totalitarian. So, of course, the police need to be in check. Of course, they don't need as much money as they need. What they need to do is enforce the laws that we already have and also be accountable to those same laws, which is not something that is true in the United States because, if a group of people have their own Bill of Rights, their own rights, if they don't have to, get prosecuted under the same degree that civilians do, then they are sovereign citizens. And, they hate that term when you use sovereign citizen, but in fact, they are the sovereign citizen. They are the ones with special rights, not you as the citizen. But, you can keep arguing whether or not to defund the police or fund the police, which is really a terrible argument because two people are arguing about totally irrelevant things, one of them being true and one of them not being true, tying them together as talking points for tribalism so that you can spend your time arguing about things that don't really matter. So you have one group of people defending the government of being a police state at the same time as screaming they're constitutionalists and they're worried about the deep state and everything, but you're going to back your blue and you're going to say they need more money. And what do you think the blue is? They're the enforcement arm of each individual government, which is the main government. It's all, partially federally funded, intertwined, task force, ammo. You're telling me that the guy with seven mags on his belt and a taser and bear spray and whatever else he's got on his Batman utility belt is not funded enough? No, of course he's funded enough. Are they all racist? Obviously not. Do they act like authoritarians when they wear a costume? Absolutely. But that's true anywhere, always. It happens unless the public keep them in check, and the only way to do that is to control their funding. And that's why there's the oxymoronic argument out there in the first place. Back to the death call. U.S. warns of cyber attacks against our water system throughout the nation. Aren't they always warning us that everything's going to be turned off? Warning us that everything's going to be reset. You need to eat less. You need to use less power. Oops, maybe the power's going to go out. Oops, maybe your water's going to be poisoned or turned off. What if it is? What are you going to do about it? Are you prepared? Do you have some way of getting water? Do you have some way of eating food if everything gets turned off? I hope so, or you'll be one of the millions that are depopulated. World on the brink as Taiwan admits U.S. troops are now stationed on the Chinese border. More of the same. Fear, fear, fear. Will we go to war at China? I don't know. It's doubtful in one way because we're such close economic ties. Our economies are intertwined. But at the same time, it seems like the inevitable conflict to decide who runs the world governments. And I would say that there may be a war that happens without any war. In other words, a lot of arguing, and then all of a sudden the world platform is going along, like Kissinger said, with the Chinese model of a communist capitalist society. Wouldn't that be great, where they decide what you can buy and what you can't buy, and you get to buy it? Isn't that nice? Anyway, on to other stuff. I thought this was funny. Candace Owens leaving the Daily Wire. Good for her. Now she can say what she wants without worrying about being criticized or called names or whatever, when she didn't even say anything about the topic. Anytime anybody says some uncomfortable truths about any group, you have calls to silence their speech. And anytime you have calls to silence speech or fire them or not give them, as Elon Musk is trying to pull on people, you got freedom of speech, but we don't have to give you freedom of reach. So in other words, we'll pretend like we're for free speech, but then we'll continue to shadow ban people that are saying uncomfortable truths about different groups. And each group around the world, don't get me wrong, has plenty of uncomfortable truths that could be talked about. Anyway, let's move on. The BLM's quiet war on precious metals. No, not Black Lives Matter, but the other BLM everybody forgot about before they came around. You remember, and me and David Dubine brought this up on our show, Mini Ice Age Conversations, on Thursday right here on Revolution.Radio, about it. Wasn't it so ironic that they had the entire nation enthralled in a drama unfolding between the American rancher, farmer, patriot, however you want to describe them, and the BLM. And the BLM enforcing seemingly foreign powers' agendas through Harry Reid out there and other places, where we were going to give over U.S. farmland that's privately owned or has contracts on it or rights associated with it to foreign economic leaders so that they could participate in transferring the wealth. I'm going to be careful what I say because, like I said, I'll be rebroadcasting on YouTube. But isn't it ironic, though, that the whole nation was enthralled with a guy named Floyd, and that Floyd got killed by the police and the BLM over this idea of freedom and who is this private entity, the Bureau of Land Management, and why do they have weapons and armor, and why are they trying to enforce moving people off of lands to then transfer it to foreign entities? Well, that got a lot of political attention. A lot of people paid attention to that. And then, let's erase the internet. Check out Black Lives Matter. And this other guy named Floyd that got killed from the police because they're racist. And then all you have to do is get on the internet, look up BLM or Floyd, and tell me what you see. But I bet you it ain't the Bureau of Land Management. And I bet you it ain't the other Floyd that got shot to death by the government with an illegal roadblock set up seemingly just to assassinate someone within their group. But I digress. Let's look back at this not Black Lives Matter quiet war on precious metals. The Bureau of Land Management is a federal agency, which I don't think so. I think they're a private corporation that's under the umbrella of the Department of Interior. I'm not exactly sure, but I'm pretty sure that they're not actually a federal agency themselves. I think they're hired goons. Anyway, they say that, according to Zero Hedge, the Bureau of Land Management is a federal agency that controls 245 million acres of U.S. land and controls 30% of the country's mineral resources. Well, that's weird. Why would they do that? Anyway, on the East Coast, it manages little land, but manages an enormous share of the western states. It owns over 2/3 of Nevada. This gives the federal government enormous sway over the West. Want to go hunting? Want to start a logging company? Want to go hiking? Better make sure it's okay with the federal government first, or the Bureau of Land Management, the BLM. The BLM does allow the public and business to use some of its land. That's the law, according to the law. But when does government always follow that? The BLM is supposed to accommodate energy production, outdoor recreation, and conservation. conservation, One of these uses that the BLM allows is gold mining. According to the GAO, billions of dollars worth of gold are mined from these lands annually. The status quo is quite favorable for mining gold and some other precious metals like silver, lithium, copper, because the miners are not required to pay royalties to the federal government, which owns the land the resources are extracted from. How much you want to make a bet that only certain people get those contracts? Yeah. This is in contrast with fossil fuel extraction on public land where energy companies are required to pay royalties. But recent moves by Biden's administration, bureaucrats in charge of the BLM, suggest that the administration is taking aim at precious metal production and might cut off the supply of precious metals from precious land. The BLM, the broader Biden administration, are doing this in two ways. First, Biden has, designating more and more federal land as natural monuments. National monuments are a kind of halfway between national parks and are set aside for conservation and limited recreational activities such as hiking and the normal federal land management by the BLM, which is generally open to hiking, hunting, and sometimes mining and logging. Every president has the power to declare federal land a national monument under an obscure law from 1906, the Antiquities Act. The Antiquities Act was meant to be used to preserve prehistoric Native American ruins, but as written allows the president to unilaterally use it at his discretion. In other words, if you thought, sillily or naively, that your government was actually looking out for you, well, probably if you dig into it, you will find out they're not. Let's go back to the death cult. Haiti police try to retake the port after major operation and gang leader stronghold. All kinds of weird stuff's going on there. Putin says gunmen who raided Moscow concert hall tried to escape to Ukraine. Kiev denies involvement. But like I was saying before, even if the U.S. is trying to say that ISIS did it, I hear CIA. Whenever they say Ukraine did it, I hear, you mean the CIA? I actually hear the same thing. When I hear Hamas or Hezbollah or, any of these things, I just hear Mossad and CIA. It's got to that point. I mean, how many times have they been busted arming, training, and being behind the operations of the so-called enemies of their organizations? So, Islamic State releases photo of alleged attackers in Russia shooting. Does that mean the CIA released it? Al-Qaeda, Al-Qaeda. Oh, sorry. Cairo. Islamic State released on Saturday a photo of what it said was 4 attackers behind the shooting rampage that killed at least 143 people in a concert hall near Moscow on Friday, the militant group's Amaq news agency said on Telegram. I just hear CIA. Sorry. Am I bad for saying that? I don't think so, because I think that's the truth. And here, check it out. Iran is getting in the game. Look at this nice little ABV remote killing machine. A turbojet and 13 bombs. Iran's new Gaza drone. Oh, you like the name? Gaza drone? That can threaten Israel. Iran recently unveiled its new UAV named Gaza, claiming that it can reach distances of 1,000 kilometers. How about that? Well, that's okay, because they got those neat little lasers that can shoot all this down that the U.S. is giving. Sorry. Iran revealed, you're supposed to be afraid of this goofy remote-controlled aircraft. Iran revealed a new unmanned aerial vehicle UAV called Gaza, claiming that it can carry up to 13 bombs equipped with turbojet engine that can reportedly propel the distances exceeding 1,000 kilometers, putting it within Israel's range. It's a new technology, and you're supposed to be scared. And think about this in the future. This thing's going to hit some targets, and they're going to go, today, Gaza attacked with Gaza. Iran attacked with Gaza drones, so they can keep the Gaza in your mind as the bad guy. Moscow shooting a deliberate provocation by Putin's special services, says Ukraine's military intelligence. Oh, Ukraine says the Russians did it in a false flag against themselves. That's not out of the realm of possibilities either, but I kind of doubt it, seeing how, in my opinion, it seems like Russia's done everything they can to avoid world war, and I think that's the whole point. It's just going to drag on a little incrementalism until they get their way, until, what do we have really left? 4 or 5 players left in the bid to run the world governance. I don't know. What would that be? China, UK, the United States, Israel, Russia, in my opinion. I don't think they're going to give India a vote, even though they got 1 billion something people. U.S. Embassy warned Americans to avoid Moscow concerts weeks before attacks. Maybe ISIS told them. Maybe that's how they knew. Oh, the U.S. Embassy in Moscow warned Americans to avoid going to concerts in Moscow just weeks before gunmen launched an attack at a concert venue on Friday. Several gunmen opened fire at the Crocus City Hall, a large music venue in the Moscow area, leaving an unknown number of victims injured. Many details about the shooting, including who the suspect shooters are and what their motive may have been, remain unclear as responders were still at the scene. Well, since then, we've blamed everybody. Russian troops hack off Moscow attack suspect's ear and feed it to him. Whoa. Damn. Maybe we should do that. And then, like on the next terrorist attack that just so happened to be on their radar. And, we were talking to them. And what was that guy's name? Al-Laki, the CIA lackey. And he used to talk to all those other dudes, like the underwear bomber and the Times Square bomber and the shoe bomber. And they all had the same kind of explosives that only the U.S. military makes. I don't know. You can't make this stuff up, can you? Russian troops hack off Moscow, attack suspect's ear, and feed it to him. Oh, man. If he really killed these people, though, I guess it's okay they made him eat his ear. Is that too barbaric? I don't know. I think they should chop off all the pedos, you know what I'm saying? But hey, I don't run stuff. I don't even know if I can play this on YouTube. I've been talking too much, huh? With world's attention on Gaza, ISIS is making a global comeback. Oh no! Who would have thunk that might have happened right when they needed it? It just seems like it's over and over again, the same old story. With much of the international attention gripped by the ongoing war in Gaza Strip, the Islamic State militant group known as ISIS, funded, trained, and aided by the U.S. government, I'm sorry I added that part, has been steadily ramping up operations across continents and setting the stage for resurgence of global mayhem. Just in time for Christmas. Oh. If you guys believe that, I got this bad-ass beach property in southern Arizona. I mean, it is the best beach property. You can buy it from me today. What's that song called? Oceanfront property in Arizona. I got some in New Mexico. There's like 280 square miles of white sands and no beach. No beach. There's some beaches out there, but, there's no water, if you know what I mean. The new Miami, Florida's panhandle city of Pensacola, sees swell in number of 1 million homes sold as laid-back vibes. Stunning beaches and great amenities attract a glut of wealthy newcomers. Most of them are old, those people that are lonely. They just want to be around people in the end. And then, if you live over there in Europe, you guys can take the easy way out together. I'm just kidding. Anyway, supposedly coffee compound trigonelline. Jeez, I hate these words. Trigonelline. I'll say it that way. It's probably not right. Anyway, Singapore. As we get older, our muscles naturally start to decline. The process known as sarcopenia can lead us to frailty, falls, and loss of independence in our golden years. But what if there's a natural compound that could keep us slow down the process and keep our muscles healthy and strong as we age? Turns out they're saying it's coffee, man. And matter of fact, I need some more of that right now to go with my Mary Jane Juana, if you know what I'm talking about. More coffee. I don't know about that. I've seen some pretty dried up old folks sucking down pots of coffee all day. They don't look too young. They look their age. I'm just saying. How to switch on your anti-aging genes, according to Yahoo News, and live longer. You've probably referred to them negatively, blaming them for your weight, bad habits, thinning hair. But while you can't change the genetic hand you've been dealt, you actually have more control over your genes, how they work, than you think. We are born with around 20,000 genes, which are stretches of DNAs that contain instructions for cells. These are 2 copies of each, one inherited from each of our parents. Scientists know that some genes predispose us to higher risk of poor health. For example, certain genetic variants can increase the risk of becoming obese, developing Alzheimer's, and suffering from cancer. However, lifestyle habits are intertwined in how our genes are expressed and can be effectively turned on and off, similar to a light switch in your home. Ultimately, this means that in many cases, you can dim down genes linked to disease and dial up those connected with long life. Now, I imagine that this is getting into the science of epigenetics, which is your environment and how your genes respond to that environment. And circle back to what we were thinking about before, about all the plastics and contaminants and, forever chemicals that are entrenched in your entire human domain. And then wonder why, cancer pops up and all of these genes are switched off that help you. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I'm just saying. Speaking of cancer, what do you think's going on with the royal family? It seems like, in my opinion, that right when, things are going crazy and people might be pointing fingers, that they might be just disappearing with their $900 billion of gold into the shadows. And it seems like, the king, he got cancer, and now the daughter-in-law's got cancer, and everybody's got cancer. So don't feel bad, us, globalists and stuff, we got the cancer too. So don't be coming to our mansion trying to burn it down when you realize that maybe we might have made some money and power off those things that might be causing said cancers. Don't get mad at us. We got it too. Look, we're poor victims. It's like on all the news headlines right now. The double cancer blow of Kate and King Charles leaves Britain's royal family depleted and strained. Oh, dear Lord, the humanity of it. What will we ever do about fascinating with rich people that have robbed the world blind? The Princess of Wales' disclosure that she has cancer and will take time off to recover leaves the ranks of working royals depleted and strained as the monarchy that King Charles III has sought to slim down. Kate's announcement on Friday prompted an outpouring of goodwill towards her and for the royal family. Isn't that nice? They're just like us. They get cancer too. That's okay. Don't feel like, you're bad for thinking that those globalists got the cancers, because they're just like you, the peasant. Isn't that nice? They're just like you. They're getting the cancer. I don't think so. Marjorie Taylor Greene files motion to remove Speaker Mike Johnson. Hey, that's good. Good for her. Why do they get the weird chick to do all of that stuff? Is she the only patriot there? The one that's weird? The one that cheats on her husband and all that stuff? It seems like they're giving conservatives people that they can publicly tear down and fail in public and humiliate so that people don't want to associate with one party or another. What do you think? Because it really does seem like that. It's almost like they're all in on it, and it's like a television show that's just broadcasted for you personally so that you could feel like you're invested in what goes on. NBC hires former RNC chair Ronna McDaniel, who has demonized the press and refused to acknowledge Biden was fairly elected, according to, CNN. Isn't that funny? That, like I said, it's almost like if they're all in on it. They just, back and forth. Ronna McDaniel on NBC. Oh, well, they got a conservative there. And this article was written by Oliver Darcy, that guy that wants to shut everybody up that doesn't say what he says. These guys are funny. They want to censor everyone, but then, if they can't control the censorship, then they'll just write these articles that make it sound like everybody's crazy. Let's see what they got from CNN. NBC News on Friday announced that it hired Ronna McDaniel, the former Republican National Committee chair who has repeatedly attacked the network and its journalists, assailed the news media as fake news, and prompted false claims around the 2020 vote. As an on-air commentator ahead of the 2024 presidential election, it could be a more important moment to have a voice like Ronna's on the team. Carrie Butoff Brown, Senior Vice President of Politics at NBC News, said in a memo to his staff. McDaniel exited the RNC earlier this month after leading organizations since 2016, and what a poop show that's been. During her time as chair, McDaniel repeatedly attacked the press, and I'm going to say rightfully so, but I'm pretty sure she's a swamp creature herself. Aren't they all? Which has become increasingly popular in Republican circles over the past several years as Donald Trump demonizes journalists and news institutions. But he doesn't even have to demonize them. They're Operation Mockingbird. Why didn't he ever say that? How come Trump doesn't get on and go, you know what? There's a reason that they're fake news. It's because they all have CIA and Mossad infiltrators that control the news, because it's Mockingbird news. You notice that your heroes on one side of the aisle or the other never say that. I think, what's his name? RFK Jr. was talking about it at least one time, to give him a little props, but for the most part, nobody talks about it. Not even Tucker Carlson. And I'm sure a lot of people like him. I like him, but he doesn't say nothing about the Mockingbird. As a matter of fact, I've been, joking about that, and then I saw a video from Mark Dice where he was even talking about the same thing. It's so funny that supposed conservative leaders or people on the right or whatever you guys are calling your tribalism thing, they never bring up the real stuff. They're scared of it. They don't bring up vaccine damage. They don't bring up, Operation Mockingbird or Operation Northwoods or Gladio that would explain to you the ever volatile geopolitical situation around the world involved with clandestine alphabet agencies that start wars, kill people, meddle in elections. And yes, I'm talking about our alphabet agencies who have admitted these things in the past. So to think that all of a sudden in 2020 they just wouldn't do that, and they wouldn't do that here in the United States, well, you're kind of silly if you believe that, in my opinion. I mean, come on. If they do it in other countries, of course they do it in your country where you live. And it was funny because we were live streaming the night of the election, and it looked like Trump had won clearly. And I was telling my co-host there, Oppenheimer, or Diamond from the Oppenheimer Ranch, I don't think so, man. They've been pre-predicting that not to accept the election for weeks on end, that there would be some kind of turmoil and discussion about what actually happened, and then Biden would be the president. And I was absolutely 100% correct on that. That's exactly what happened. Now, whether or not you believe he won fairly or squarely, that's up to you. But what I did say did come true. They did debate it for weeks, and Biden became the president, just like I had predicted. Escape from hell. U.S. veterans dodge gun-wielding kids at checkpoints to save civilians from Haiti's gangs and daring SAS-style missions. Brian Stern and his team Project Dynamo specialize in hard cases in hard places, and they say they've never leave anyone behind. Well, maybe they should be in charge of stuff in other places of these kind of operations then, huh? As Haiti descends into pure anarchy, a crack team of fearless U.S. veterans are quickly becoming the last hope for foreign nationals trapped within the clutches of ruthless gangs. Brian Stern, 45, and his comrades are leading daring SAS-style land, sea, and air missions into the heart of lawless carnage to go where no one else dares. Former Navy SEAL Brian Stern, the founder of the CEO of international rescue organizations Project Dynamo, yeah, at least somebody's doing it. Maybe they should have hired him to go get those 13 U.S. servicemen that got left behind when we left $85 billion worth of weapons for the Taliban. And wait till that pops up on the news. Wait a minute, it just did. When they said ISIS is coming back, it's doing stuff. It's predictive programming. That's what it is. I mean, how long did you really think it was going to take for that $85 billion worth of weapons to trickle down to the right people to start using it in the right places we want to destabilize further in this ongoing reset to end the nation state? And back to the robots. Don't worry about that. You could just stay at home, hang out with your robot. That way you don't have to be lonely and euthanize yourself, because you got a robot to talk to, and you could tell the robot all of your thoughts, fears, and ideas, and don't worry about it. I'm sure he'll keep that secret, or her, or they, them, or whatever that robot wants to identify as. My question is how are you going to get, there's one thing, you can't have a well, I guess if a robot has a quantum computer, then it's non-binary, right? Because it's zeros, it's ones, it's zeros and ones at the same time. I don't know. I'm just saying. So, I guess the robots can identify as whatever they want, the binary and the non-binary ones. Or does that make them something else? I don't know. Maybe that makes them fluid like liquids or something. I don't know. It's so confusing out there, man. Maybe you should just get on a plane and take off and go somewhere. Or maybe not, because it might fall apart. U.S. FFA weighs curbing new routes for United Air after safety incidents, Bloomberg reports. And this is something that I've been talking about for some time, too. They have reduced the amount of inspections. They have outsourced the jobs. The inspectors are outsourced. No one is looking at what's going on, and I've been predicting that the airline industry would fall apart because they want to do the same thing to the airline industry that they want to do to everything else, and that is reboot, reset, recycle, and reuse. The same thing they want to do to you. And besides that, who wants a bunch of people that think they're free people with bad credit scores, just getting in planes and flying around cheap and stuff? You don't want that to happen, do you? You got to have the right social credit score to get on the new planes, the safe planes. I'm just kidding. That's just a nightmare of mine. But if you think that people are really doing a good job, you might want to look into who's actually fixing your planes, how they're fixing them, who's inspecting it, whether or not it actually got inspected. I mean, that's all stuff you don't want to think about. It's just like every other problem in the worldwide death cult. They know that you got to think about you. You got to pay your bills. You can't think about all these big ideas, but you better start thinking about them. And I guess that's all for Mountain High Time today. See you next Saturday. Thanks for listening. And we're out. Wow. Man. Anyway, thanks for watching on Mountain High Time. This has been a previously recorded episode just for you. And don't you forget it. And if you'd like to help Revolution.Radio, think about contributing to their platform where we get to say stuff. I don't know how much of this episode you got to watch because I'll have to watch it and, edit myself and watch my mouth and all that whatnot and wooey. Anyway, thanks for watching. And if you'd like to help yours truly, who does this for a job, thank you. You can donate down there in the blue link, the one that says PayPal, because that's the only way I can get it because YouTube will not monetize me. I don't know what it is. Is it something I said? I just don't know. Anyway, peace out. This has been Mountain High Time. I'm your host, Ransom Godwin, and thanks for joining.
That's very dirty.